Welcome to the Church of Jesus Christ, where at the very least, we honor our God. At the very most that we can do, we love him. The very most we can do, we serve him. At the very most we can do, we do our best. Most who have given themselves to the Lord have to get there by answering a question or two. And one of those questions is, do you promise to give your best? I don't know what my best was at 18 years old. I don't know. Maybe it was I would give up disco dance on Friday nights at Big Daddy's. Maybe that was what I thought was the best at 18 years old. And my report is I did. I just want to make sure everyone knows I did at least that. But it's a moving target, isn't it? Our best is a moving target. I wonder what I thought I was committing to on April 25th, 1981, when I stood across from Candace and committed myself to her. I don't know. I can't go back to early 20s and tell you what my mind was spinning at that point. But I know this, my best, my dedication, my commitment to both and others as well is much greater than it was. As I've matured and I've learned and grown, I've also raised that bar as I go forward. I also have seen myself fail in all relationships. And so now I know where the pitfalls are. And maybe once I was innocent, maybe one time, but when I say once, I don't mean a time period. I mean one trip and fall. I was innocent once, but after that, I'm responsible. And so I hope that my report would be that my ways of serving any and all are greater than they were, and that my report is better than it was. I don't know. I just hope that's what it would be. Today we have a young man who has and is continuing to give himself to his service, in his service for our country. And I don't really always appreciate that phrase, though I always utilize it because it's proper, but in service of me, in service of you, in service of each one of us. When I say the country, it feels a little impersonal, but the truth is that he's serving us actively. Another man sitting among us had given himself to service as well, and I am impressed with such sacrifice. I didn't. And so I say that with respect. I say that with honor. So having said that, the best I did was I was a safety patrol in 6th grade. That was my service to my country and to my community. And so I remember at the end of 5th grade when we were selected, and it was quite an honor. So we were selected to be safety patrols. I don't know that these callings exist today. I would assume not. But in that time, you were presented with an orange belt and a badge. And at this ceremony, you were trained on how to be a safety patrol. And we did not. I'm smiling ear to ear right now, thinking how such a small thing, especially I want to say respectfully, in relation to the two men I've just honored. But having said that, at the time it was big, because we were going to have stations positioned strategically on dangerous streets, and we were getting the students home safely. It wasn't just a position outside the school and kids went to their parents' cars. I remember my station was at a red light, and it was 4 or 5 blocks away from the school. So it was a parade of sorts. And so 4 of us would leave the school and we would drop the first one off at a strategic corner, then another one off at another corner. And then I remember mine was the furthest, and by the way, I feel like John the Apostle all of a sudden. Both Peter and I ran to the tomb and I got there first. So I'm embarrassed to say I was the captain of the patrols, so I had the furthest spot. This was the big honor at the red light. And this moment in 5th grade, what I recall, this moment in 5th grade when we were being trained and kind of taught what our roles were, I can remember the key to what we were taught is to stand at attention. And when the other students came to you, you put your arms out and held them back. And I can remember even into April and May, when you start to get loose and you're not as serious about school anymore, especially in sixth grade. For me, sixth grade was what other kids have in fifth grade. We had junior high and not middle school. And so sixth grade was your last year in elementary. So it never loosened. You know how you start at the end of the year, you start to get fun and silly. We never got silly in our jobs. I stood at attention and holding the kids back, knowing that if my right arm might fall out of being exhausted, 3 kids would run into the street, the red light would change, and I would be responsible. And so I took this very, very serious. And so I learned to stand at attention, and the seriousness of that and the role involved there. What they were teaching us is to be watchful and be focused on what we were supposed to be doing. Please forgive me, those of you who have served in greater capacities, kind of as great as I get right there. That was my peak at serving, probably in some type of capacity. But I recall what they were instilling in a 5th grade mind that I carried into the 6th grade, and I've carried into my 60s. Stay watchful and stay focused. You have a job, you have a responsibility, and there is accountability to that. Stay watchful, stay focused. By nature, I'm not a jealous person. I thank God for the relationships that I've been engaged in on many levels, but especially with Candace. So I don't know what my nature really is 40-something years later, but I don't feel like I'm a jealous person by nature, but I haven't had to be with this angel of a woman that I've married. And so there has not been a reason to even be challenged in that capacity. I say that for no other purpose than to say, I don't know that I'm not jealous, but I've not had that feeling or that kind of prompting at this point in my life. I think of that phrase, I think of that word, I think of that emotion. I have certainly experienced jealousy and envy in my life, so I understand it. It just hasn't been such a prompting for me. By definition, I mean, when you think about what jealousy is, by definition, if you will, it can happen to any of us. So I am not immune. And I'm not saying God forbid anyone would think I just said I was above. I'm not saying that. It just hasn't been challenged to me yet. So my thoughts were, is the word jealousy, is the emotion jealousy, is the experience of jealousy, is it a weakness? Is it, does it show vulnerability? Does it show insecurity? I don't know. Maybe I do. Maybe I did a lot more studying than I'm pretending to have done in advance of. But really, my question may be grander than what I'm saying. Is the weakness exhibited by the person feeling jealousy, or is the insecurity by the person maybe creating that situation that causes jealousy? Don't know. Answering none of these. I'm just stirring your spirits up so that you are in the same mess that I'm in mentally right now. So having said that, jealousy has never had a positive connotation to me. It's more important than anything else, at least in what I'm presenting to you today. So I've never considered jealousy a strength. I've never considered it an addition to, only a reaction. And I'll leave it at that. I said by definition, so I'm going to read you the definition. I don't want to leave you hanging there. Jealousy is this, or jealous is this: feeling or showing suspicion of someone's unfaithfulness in a relationship. Fiercely protective or vigilant of one's rights or position of power. So I want you just to marinate on the word jealous. And understand that it's not just a one-on-one relationship. You can feel jealousy at work. You can feel like my company is not loyal to me, and I feel jealous. There are other people whose companies treat them so respectfully. So jealousy can manifest many, many different relationships. So when I say relationship, please don't draw a conclusion that it's just a loving relationship or a romantic, maybe better, a romantic relationship. It's all the above. My son, my two daughters and my son are all married now. And they have these people in their lives called in-laws who vie for his attention, who vie for their attention, my daughter's attention, in competition with me. How dare they? And so jealousy can manifest many places, many ways. Again, I'm not jealous by nature. In fact, I have celebrated those of my children who have healthy relationships with their in-laws, and it's just another addition too. But I could see if insecure, I could see if threatened, that I would feel that, I would experience that, and I'm thankful for the health of my relationship with my kids that doesn't come up, but I can see that. So I'm only trying to expand your definition of how this emotion can take place. And by the way, make a note, asterisk this sermon. This is a sermon I never dreamed I would ever engage in. It just never kind of came into my mindset. And here we are. I'm feeling inspired in this message. So I hope it works that way. I'm going to read you a couple scriptures so that we know that, so that you can come to your own conclusions, as I have. I'm not going to lead you there. But remember, my question was, who creates and whose weakness is it and whose insecurity is the word jealousy? Exodus 25 says this: thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. The pronoun them is all we have here. Now there's more if you go to Exodus 20 and do your homework, and I've guided you to just another homework assignment. So go ahead and read that when you get home, Exodus 20. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them, for I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God. Deuteronomy 5:9. You shall not worship them or serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God. So I think we'll scrap the insecurity, the weakness as the person necessarily feeling jealousy, right? Having read that, we don't assign that to God's insecurity with us. But if there's any of that, it would be because those who are engaged in the relationship with him are not providing an equal amount of love, an equal amount of honor, an equal amount of servitude that God provides to us. So when we are in an imbalanced relationship, jealousy manifests. Makes sense. Reading on. For thou shalt, this is Exodus 34, for thou shalt worship no other God, for the Lord whose name is jealous is a jealous God. He's underlining just how possessive he is with you. Making that an easier, more palatable phrase, he's underlining how much he loves you. So you understand what we're talking about here, how much he loves you, that the writer even says that his name is jealous. He's defined by his possessiveness with us in a loving way. You are mine. You are my own. And when you look away, I'm irritated. I'm hurt. I'm confounded, maybe even. How could you? You said to me that I am your everything. God is good, and everyone says all the time. And then someone else says all the time, and everyone says God is good, until we assess that he isn't. And all of a sudden we turn our backs, or we lose our focus. Stay watchful, stay focused. And in moments in our life, we lose our focus, and we no longer remain watchful of only he who is worthy of our focus. And sometimes it's because I'm focused on all the wrong things. And if you want to join me in that confession, join me in that confession. Lastly, so that we don't think it's all Old Testament, 2 Corinthians, the 11th chapter, the second verse says this, "For I am jealous for you with a godly jealousy, that I betrothed you to one husband, so that to Christ I might present you as a pure virgin." I have introduced you to your life partner, Jesus Christ. I have spoken to you. I have taught you, says the preacher in this one. Paul is speaking to the Corinthians. I have made that connection for you to Christ. I presented you as pure-hearted, pure-minded. He your only love, and you've looked away. First question is, who are those? And I wrote this down, so I'm going to have to read this one as well as these verses. Earlier, I told you I introduced you to and invited you to do some homework and read some of the chapters that I read to you. But they were speaking of gods. I'm assuming you knew that. The pronoun them was to gods. These were multiples of gods that were vying for the attention of the people. Just as you have in your life today. These gods had names. And I'm going to read you just a couple of those names. You'll be responsible for remembering none of them, by the way. I'm just going to read them to you so that you know that they truly were called out as, "I'd love to pay attention to you, God, but I have Baal that I pay my attention to. I have Dagon, I have Moloch, I have Nergal, I have Anat, I have Ashima, I have Chemosh, I have Elion, I have Asherah." And it goes on, by the way. I just thought if I read you 10, I might exhaust you if I read 11. And certainly if I read 80. But multiples and multiples and multiples of options did the people have thousands of years ago, hundreds of years ago, tens of years ago, but nowhere near the gods that you have access to in 2023. Vying for your attention. Remember when I spoke to Mike when he was first in this, so says me, I don't even know that this is accurate assessment, but early in his career. I was going to say first in the service down at the fort. I don't even know that, but early in his career. And he was an ace. He was a top gun. He was called into his work because of his accuracy in many ways. But one of them was his ability to shoot. And so having said that, I remember a conversation with him, and he may not, and I don't ask him to remember it, but for me it may have been one of 47 conversations that week. For me, it was the only one I had in all my years with someone in such a role. And we talked about the accuracy that young people have today in these roles. And he said that it was due, part of the assessment of how accurate they were, how pinpoint they were, much more so than my time period. My time period being Vietnam, much more than the accuracy then. And he assessed it to games, video games. I think they had told him that this hand-eye coordination that was so extraordinary, a lot was due to video games. So there's this great positive called video games. Who are the gods in our world today? Video games. Put them in there. Put them in as one of the lists of gods that vie for the attention. All kinds of gods serve us, or we serve, excuse me. Anything vying for your attention. Anything that you give your attention to, but watch this, in place of, instead of God who deserves all our attention. For I am a jealous God, says God. And so our attention is robbed on multiples and multiples of gods. None of them in our world answer to Moloch, but some answer to friends' names. I've told you this story before. I won't spend much time on it. But I recall when I first came into the church, or maybe a better way to say that, when I first gave my heart to the Lord, that there was another vying for my attention. And while some of those may have been females, soon it was Candace. Soon after that, it was Candace. A year later, I met Candace. But at the time, it was a guy named Mark. That's who was vying for my attention. My buddy that I hung out with was a guy named Mark. And he was in some way one of those gods vying for my attention. And when I should have been, fill in your blank, I was hanging out with. Now, I could have maintained that relationship if not for my giving in to providing too much attention and seeing that I had to fix what was broken. And so my tongue-in-cheek comment is I had to break up with Mark. And so I did. I had that relationship had to end because it was throwing my spiritual life out of balance. There were things I used to do with my friend that I had now chosen not to do. Only one of us was converted. And so it was unfair and unrealistic to expect Mark to join me in my new walk. Plus, I don't even know that I had the strength or the directness to say that that was my expectation. So I went the wimpy way and went out the back door rather than out the front door in full disclosure. And we slowly drifted apart. Thankful for that relationship, by the way. It was a lovely relationship, but the timingness of it wasn't good. And he was one of my gods vying for my attention. He was my Moloch at that point, if you will. Other gods in our life might even be family at times. I think Paul writes that if it were up to him, we would all be as he was, and he was single as he was writing this. And he goes on to say, because our significant others in our families pull our attention away from the things of God. Now, I'm asking no one to break up and separate from anyone. I'm asking you, though, to get some balance in your spiritual life. I'm asking you to make certain that you maintain that original promise you made, the best of your ability. With this knowledge, it's going to change. We don't go down in our commitment, we go up. We don't strike things off of our list of things that we have to lessen while we raise God up in our eyes and raise our relationship with Jesus Christ up. In fact, we add to that list. So it has to be noted that it's all with balance. It said video games, and I'm not telling anyone to stop doing video games. When I ride my stationary bike at night, okay, I play video games as I ride my stationary bike. So I'm feeding physicality and I'm feeding brain as well. Waiting for Fort Knox to call me. Your hand-eye coordination has finally come up to Mike Metters. You can fly a helicopter with Mike now. I don't think that's going to happen, but I can ride a bike and do a video game at the same time. So I'm not telling anyone to strike that. What I'm telling you to do is get your life in balance. Get your priorities in balance. For I am, says God Almighty, a jealous God. When the world shut down 3 years ago, 4 years ago, whatever it was, when the world shut down, Candace and I discovered a word. The word is binge. We had never known the word binge, and all of a sudden, we're stuck in our home. We're binging things. We would never be watching shows for a half hour and then another half hour and then another. What is going on? Our televisions can become our God. Entertainment can become our God. Friends, I told you. Family, I told you. Video games, I told you. The list goes on and on and on. Life, whatever life brings you, can become. If we get out of sync, there's so much in 2023 vying for your attention. Had a young man, 2 weddings upcoming. And we did, in the premarital counseling, we did values. They do life values, and they bring their values down to their highlighted list of what they value in their lives. And so one of the young people that I've been counseling listed success as one of his key values. And so, as I always do in these sessions, I asked, well, tell me what that means to you. And he did. And he gave me the definition of success per young person. And it was accurate, it was good. And I tried to express to the individuals, this young couple, that definition will change with time. I said, I'm not here to discourage, nor correct, nor amend. But it just does. As we evolve, what was important grows. And what I mean by that is, no longer is this the most important of the defining factors to success, but it grows. And this from a single person, he's about to get a different perspective in just a couple weeks or months. And as this young couple may explore having children later, his definition will continue to expand. As his time is no longer his, and it's doled out amongst many, his definition of success will change. And so all of these things vie for our attention, all of them. These things we love most vie for our attention. And God whispers to us, I am a jealous God. Stay fixed, stay watchful, stay focused on me. I find my relationship with God interesting is the most generous way I'll say that about myself. I could be very critical and bring more accuracy to how I define that relationship. I love the Old Testament story, you've been weighed in the balance and found wanting. I believe I leave God wanting in many cases for me, because my attention so easily is pulled away. This past week, I had an MRI. I think I've had this done before because there was so much familiarity to the process that I went through. But I don't remember it like this was. The process was 45 minutes. They taped my hands down. I was completely restricted and then sent into a tube that I know I have a burn on my nose. That thing was so low, it had to have just scraped skin off me. And I was so enclosed. I have zero claustrophobia. Or so I thought until this past Thursday. I was just amazed at I was also amazed at how restricted, amazed at the holding down. This was with contrast, I think they call it. So I just touched my arm and I feel the pain there. I had an IV done, and the radiologist said, we have it on a machine, so you'll hear the machine go on, and then your arm will burn, and then you'll feel sensation, and you'll taste saline, and then, oh, thank you for just more joy for this next 45 minutes. This is all in prep of 45 minutes. So the sensation that I recall most was my heart beating. That's what I remember the most, is just going and going and going. It's like, and I kept saying, find your center, calm your spirit down. I have high blood pressure, so I just thought at some point, about minute 23, I'm just going to combust, and they're going to pull the thing out, and they're just going to find a blanket in there. So just, I have no claustrophobia, but when everything is taken from you, all of a sudden, all kinds of sensations. All of that to say, this was one of my favorite 45-minute moments of my life. I found myself in prayer for 45 minutes. It was magnificent. Now, even as restricted as I was, even as I kept my eyes closed most of the time, even as everything was taken away from me, that video games were gone, TV was gone, movie selection was gone, choice was taken from me, no options other than to lay there taped down, restricted. I still found my mind wandering as I was praying. Now, if you haven't done an MRI, it's also one of the loudest things. You'll ever go, boom, 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 just pounding sounds and different tones. They're very lovely, high pitched and low pitched and bang, then the shaking. It's just amazing, the process. So trying to maintain my focus on God, even in that, these noises vying for my attention. Yet I found it this magnificent 45 minutes. There's not a person that I see here that didn't get their name said in this 45 minutes. I found myself praying for all of you. Found myself asking forgiveness throughout. Because I couldn't recall in the most recent months a time where I gave 45 minutes uninterrupted to such prayer, my confession. Vying for my attention daily. Here in this restricted tube, I still found myself wandering. For I am a jealous God, says God. I want it all. It doesn't mean you won't have it all. In fact, if he says, if I give my all to him, he'll give me all I want. And yet, I lose my way. I don't remain diligent. I don't remain focused. I don't remain watchful. Our theme today is standing at attention. That's our theme. Standing at attention represents watchfulness. It represents focus. It represents honor and respect for God. Standing at attention. He demands it, and he's permitted. And the only one who is worthy of our standing at attention. And I happily stop on a Wednesday if it interrupts my talk, or if it's at the end of the talk, to stand with these young football players and stand at attention and honor the nation. Why then wouldn't I stand figuratively at attention in all facets of my life in honor of God? For he is a jealous God. He wants this from us. More specifically, he wants this from you. He wants your attention. He wants your focus. He wants your watchfulness. But with purpose, so that he can bless you. Why? Because we're so small that we need the promise. If all he said is stand at attention, that's enough. But he says, if you'll stand at attention, I'll give you everything you want. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness and all these things. I don't know what all your things are. I know what all my things are. I don't know what all your things are. But all these things will be added unto you. Says his mouthpiece on this earth, Jesus Christ. My Father sent me that I might tell you this. Seek ye first his kingdom, his righteousness, and everything you want, everything you need, everything on your list will be added to you. But only if you seek first. Not as an afterthought, like my life has often been defined as, but as a priority one, standing at attention, watchful and focused on he who deserves, he who is worthy. Can you put that in more concise terms? Said man to the Creator. And Jesus Christ said, you shall love the Lord your God And I want you to hear how he expects your love. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart. All your heart. Seek ye first all your heart. All your soul. All your mind. And Mark, the apostle, adds this. Only one who adds this. And all your strength. This is the first, said Jesus Christ, and great commandment. When we love God properly, then he allows us a second commandment. When we love God properly and give him all our heart, all our mind, all our soul, all our strength, then he says, and love others. Because I can't be entrusted. And I flip those too often. And others may sound like Candace. Others may sound like Courtney. Others may sound like Aubrey. Others may sound like Kylie. I'm not going to go through all my grandchildren. I'm not going to go through all your names. You are the others that can get in my way of serving my God in this sense that I give you all my attention in that moment. But the name that comes before most is Doug. That's the one that causes me the most problems. And if you love God properly, he lets you love others. And then Jesus adds, as you love yourself. And those are actually in the right order, but they're reversed. Because we love self first, and that's what he uses as a reference. And then we love others, and then we love God. And what Jesus is saying, flip that, and you have your priority list right. Love God, love others regardless of what they look like, regardless of where they come from, regardless of who they serve, regardless of who they don't serve. Love others. All of them, others fall under this category, God's creation. Love them all, but not before you love God. It's kind of that simple. And it really is kind of that simple. Love God. Our jealous God deserves our love. Love others. He loves them. He does not love you more than he loves them. That's what we have to understand. So who am I to dole out my love differently? Based on anything. Based on my harsh love? Based on my ignorant judgment? I have to rein it all in love as God loves. One go around, that's all we get. One go around. This life is so much shorter than we think. Last week, one of our coaches, Ben Cooper, sent a text in. Oh, excuse me. He actually sent a text and then called me at practice and said, tell the guys I'm going to be there, but I'm going to be late. I'm stuck in this traffic jam. and a long time ago, I taught Aubrey. She used to drive home from work in downtown, and she would always get frustrated by traffic. And I taught her this phrase. I said, Aubrey, someone's life might be changing right now by whatever's holding you up. You're frustrated for this 20 minutes, but someone's life may be changing completely in this moment. She now says every time she's in a traffic jam, she prays for whatever's up front. Coop said, I'm going to be late. Tell the coaches I'm going to be late. There's some mess. 15 minutes later, he called me to tell me, I just saw what was holding me up. And I told him that whole thing about someone's life is changing to try to calm him down. He's an emotional guy. And so when he gave me his report, he was frustrated. He has to be at practice and nothing else matters. And I said, someone's life might be changing right now. Called me to confirm. He said, I just saw, and I'm not going to go into details at all. He said, I just saw what was holding me up. And he said, there are people to be praying for right now. The next day we found out The first couple we met in our neighborhood, were these two sweet people who were elderly. And by elderly at that point, they were in their 50s. So I'm looking back at 50s now. So to us in our 30s, they were elderly to us. So they're in their 80s now. But Carol and Jean are these two sweet people who we've known since we moved onto Echo Valley Circle. And we hadn't seen them for a little bit, and then Candace and I saw them just last week, and we greeted them out front and talked for a good 10 minutes or so. It was just so lovely. And afterwards, Candace said, that's the first time we've ever hugged them. And maybe the only one surprised is Lonnie here today. That's the first time you hugged them. I don't think there's anyone on this earth that you haven't hugged yet. So I said, that's right. I said, I didn't even think of that. She said, she said that was our best conversation we've ever had with them. It was them in the accident this past week. And we lost her in this accident. People's lives could be changing. I say all of that to say to you, life is short. Life is unpredictable. Nothing is guaranteed. As I look at each one of you, every single one of you in this room, on this screen, we've probably all gone through things where we've talked about loss and gain, where we've talked about situations, where we've talked about how quickly life can change. God is a jealous God. Spend every waking moment standing at attention for your God. And what I'm telling you is be watchful, be mindful, be focused on your God, that he never experiences that twinge, that little feeling of jealousy for you. Might you be fully engaged with your God in every waking moment. You, the people of God, make certain that anyone who comes in contact with you, anyone who witnesses your walk, would say this about you: he or she loves their God, and it's manifested in all that they do. May the Lord bless each one of you.